Let's be very clear from the start. We're not looking at a story. We are examining a record, a case file from 1949.
So back in 1949, the Catholic Church took a step that it almost never takes. I mean, this is an institution built on centuries of procedure, and this particular action is considered an absolute last resort.
And this wasn't some whispered rumor. They actually documented it. The priests involved kept detailed, written logs, a moment-by-moment account of a prolonged and deeply disturbing series of events.
Right here, we need to set aside everything we think we know from fiction. This is not a horror movie. The entire point of this is to simply look at the documented facts of the case, exactly as they were recorded by the people who were there.
The person at the center of this file is known only by a pseudonym, Roland Doe. And by all available accounts, he was just an ordinary 14-year-old boy. There was absolutely nothing in his background to suggest what was about to unfold.
So where did it all start? The case file points to a pretty clear sequence of events. First, his aunt, who was an avid spiritualist, introduced him to a Ouija board. Shortly after that, she passed away. And that's when the unexplained disturbances reportedly began in the family home.
You know, what's interesting is that the first entries in the record aren't about the boy himself, but about his environment. Witnesses reported scratching sounds coming from inside the walls, furniture moving on its own, and most disturbingly, the boy's own bed shaking violently, even when he was lying perfectly still.
Of course, the immediate and logical question for everyone involved was, what is this? Is it a medical issue? Is it psychological? Before any other explanation was even on the table, the family turned to science.
And this is a really crucial point in the file. Medical and psychological evaluations were performed, but the professionals who examined Roland, they couldn't find a diagnosis. They had no clear framework, nothing in their textbooks to explain what was happening.
And then the phenomena shifted. They moved from the external environment, the house, to the boy's own body. This created physical evidence that multiple witnesses would later describe in detail.
The records state that words began to form on his skin. Witnesses reported seeing distinct letters appear, spelling out words like evil.
And others, equally disturbing, like hell. It's the specific nature of these markings, as they were documented by observers, that makes this part of the record so unusual. The attending doctors were reportedly baffled. The markings were described as welts or raised red letters that would just surface on the skin without any apparent cause, remain visible for a time, and then fade away, leaving the skin completely unbroken.
So, with conventional explanations exhausted, the family turned to the church. And the intervention wasn't a single event. It was a process that spanned months and even moved across locations as the situation escalated.
The priests maintained a very detailed log, and these weren't vague feelings, they were specific, observable phenomena. Violent spasms that seemed to occur only during the recitation of prayers. Displays of strength that required multiple adults to restrain him. And even reports of xenoglossy, that's speaking a language, in this case Latin, that he had never learned.
The priest's diary also records statements made by the boy in a voice that was described as not his own. One of them, a direct refusal to yield during one of the rites, was simply, "He will not leave."
After weeks of these documented events, the turning point came suddenly. In the middle of a session at a St. Louis hospital, everything just stopped.
According to the log, those were the words the boy cried out. Witnesses described an immediate calm that just settled over the room, and the ordeal, as far as the record is concerned, was over. And this contrast really illustrates the core mystery of the case. The period before April 1949 is filled with dozens of documented extreme events. The period after is marked by complete silence. No relapses, no recurrences, nothing. The boy, Roland Doe, grew up, got married, had a family, and pursued a highly technical and successful career. He reportedly worked as a NASA engineer for nearly 4 decades. He lived an entirely unremarkable life, which makes the events of 1949 all the more difficult to categorize.
Ultimately, the file leaves us with 2 primary interpretations. Was this a profound but temporary psychotic episode, a trauma response that science at the time just couldn't diagnose? Or was it what the church treated it as, a genuine spiritual affliction? The file offers evidence that could point in either direction, but proof of neither.
The institution itself never declared this a definitive, proven case of demonic possession. Their official position is much more cautious. They argue that the observable phenomena were severe enough to warrant the extreme measures they took. They simply acted on the evidence before them.
And that leaves us with the really unsettling question at the heart of this file. If this was all a product of illness or suggestion, why did so many trained professionals, doctors, psychologists, and priests, all conclude that they were witnessing something beyond their understanding? The record doesn't answer, it only asks.